It was a night to remember at the Metrodome. All the ingredients were there. A national television audience, the Dallas Cowboys, over 60,000 enthusiastic fans who were as ready for this game with the Cowboys as the Vikings were. Even Crazy George added to the hoopla. But with all the side attractions, it was the game, the most exciting in years, which was the topic of conversation today. The Vikings and the Cowboys, the feature attraction tonight on the Rashad Rosen NFL Report.
Ever been since we've played in there in just a short season. But if we can get that kind of crowd reaction every single week, then we will in fact have a home field advantage.
It's unbelievable to think the Vikings even have a home field advantage, and there was a lot of talk just a couple weeks ago whether or not the Vikings would even make the playoffs. All the pieces fell in the right places, though, for the Vikes.
Of all the teams in the league, I think we are the one team that realizes it's two separate seasons. All you have to do is do whatever it takes to get to the playoffs, and then once the playoff starts, it's a totally separate season. Everybody's got a chance to win the championship.
Well, Ahmad, of course, we'd like to remind you that a little bit later in the show, Ahmad and I will be here to answer your phone-in questions. The numbers to call are locally 330-2404. That's 330-2404. And if you want to call us collect, that number is area code 612-330-2688. That's 330-2688, and we will try to get to as many calls as possible a little bit later in the show. Well, you know, this was one of those rare games when we could honestly show the entire game and not find a dull moment. It was like watching, I think, a great heavyweight fight with both teams coming back, refusing to go down for the count until the bitter end. Ahmad, I know you were honored in pregame ceremonies. Your final appearance, final regular season appearance, of course, at the Metrodome last night.
Very mixed emotions. I felt very good going out and getting the ovation that I got, but I just felt like if I had to write my own script, I'm sure it wouldn't have ended like that. I would have loved to play it against Dallas because, like I say, the guys were so fired up. I just wanted to be a part of that. So I went upstairs and yelled my head off for an hour, and we came out with a nice victory.
I think we're trying to get in the highlights of the game here. We have some tape of that honored the pregame ceremonies going out for the coin flip. They didn't even let you call the coin flip, though.
No, I got a chance to say hello to a few good friends of mine, Randy White and Dennis Thurman. Those are all good friends of mine, and I thought I could put the whammy on the coin and have us win it, but it didn't work that way.
Doug Martin said the way the team was so psyched up for this game, they almost shoved Bud Grant out of the way to get out to the locker room. He played like it, and so did the defense early.
This guy, Tony Dorsett, they held him in check. Without that long run that he had late in the game, they would have had him pretty well corralled.
Slick field, just ask Rafael Septien.
You know, he was out about an hour and a half before the game, walking all over the field, so he should have known that there were slippery spots on the field. He was the first guy out for the Dallas Cowboys, and he was all over the field looking at all the wet spots.
There's Crazy George, recruited from Houston. He did get the crowd going last night.
Crazy George had him going. We got to bring him back.
I think he is going to be back. The second quarter, reminiscent of the Jets game, really. The Vikings moving the ball, but Dallas coming up with the big plays.
The pass was right on the money. Dennis Thurman made a great play here by anticipating. Every team in the league runs this particular play, and Dennis Thurman is a very good safety. He realized Terry LeCount was making the outbreak, jumped inside, and ran all the way down for the touchdown.
Ted Brown, a 100-yard night rusher.
Ted Brown is the key to the Minnesota Vikings football team. I've always said that. He's one of the most underrated backs in the entire league, and as Teddy goes, so to speak, we go.
There's the fake punt by Coleman. Jeff Seaman actually had called this play off, but Coleman did not hear him.
Here you're going to see some of that world-class speed that Greg Coleman has as you see him just run away from everybody around that side. You give Greg room like that, and he'll run that far every time. He's an excellent athlete, and during the week he runs routes with the offense and beats the defense all the time.
That got the Vikes a big first down. Dan Meyer converted the field goal. It's now 10-3 Dallas. The Cowboys were doubling up on the wide receivers.
They were, but here you see a nice pass to Tony Galvin, who's one of the best backs coming out of the backfield, running on linebackers, and he was very effective last night.
Ricky Young, a true pro in every sense of the word, Ahmad.
Consummate pro. Ricky Young does whatever it takes to win football games, and he's done that ever since he's been here, and that's his strong point. He blocks well, he runs well, he never makes mistakes. He's just a consummate professional. Watch the block he makes here on the touchdown run here. He's the lead blocker.
Beautiful block. Brown carried the ball 5 straight times on this drive. The referees finally signaled touchdown. It was 10-all.
Well, Teddy Brown, he got a workout last night, but like I say, we've got to get production out of Teddy, and he's our top ball player.
Near the end of the second half, the Vikings harassing here Danny White with curtain off.
Danny White is most effective when he has times to throw. And last night, we did not give him any time to throw at all. Our front four was playing as well as they've played in 7-8 years.
Opening drive of the third quarter, Kramer to McCollum for 15 yards.
Very important catch right there. Sam runs a good outright route. Tommy puts the ball right on the money.
Darren Nelson made the ultimate sacrifice on this play. Watch it. Fake it. I think this is the first time our cameraman Al Crocker has ever been faked out. At least that's what he tells us.
You know, Tommy Kramer is one of the top faking quarterbacks in the league. It's something that he works on all the time during practice. And here he thought he got hit a little bit late, and I don't think he wanted those guys to let him loose at that big linebacker.
Steve Jordan wide open on this play.
Steve Jordan, I've talked about him all year too. He's a hell of a rookie and a great football player. He's got a big future in front of him. 3rd and 10, Kramer escaping the rush here and throwing to Ted Brown. Ted Brown breaks a tackle and gets into the end zone. I mean, it's 17-10 Vikings. Now, late in the third quarter, the Vikings had 3 pass interference calls in a big hurry. This pass interference, I think, was justified. John Swain is learning their position, and he's playing it very well, but you can't put that backhand on the back of the receiver. How about this one? This call I didn't think was a good call at all. I thought that John Turner made an excellent play on this ball. I saw it on the replay, and he just kind of works his body around in front of the receiver and knocks the ball away. It's just a shame that he gets called for pass interference and gets them in very good scoring position. Doug Martin then took over. In 2 consecutive plays, he held Dorsett to a -4 yards. Doug Martin was playing out of his shoes, out of his helmet, out of his mind. He is coming into his own, and I think Charlie Johnson is a lot responsible for that defensive line coming to life. Since he's been here, they've all played all-pro caliber football. Crazy George liked that one. Now we're moving into the fourth quarter. White's pass here coming up will be tipped by Mullaney. They did this all night, and John Turner will go in for the score. It's an excellent play by John Turner. He picks that ball off with one hand, and it's a great turnaround. He gets called for the pass interference a little bit earlier, and he comes right back and scores a touchdown. Everything was going the Vikings' way, and the ensuing kickoff, the Cowboys will fumble the ball out of bounds on the 1-foot line. At this point, I thought we had him in the bag. But just to show how tough the Vikings played, there were a couple times in the games that we got down, came right back in the game. NFL history in the making. Dallas with only 10 men on the field when Dorsett runs away for the score. Mark, I ran the 100-yard dash against Tony Dorsett in the Superstars 2 years ago, and he set the Superstar record by running a 9.400 in tennis shoes. Unbelievable. No one was going to catch him. Teal did have a shot at him. When he broke out in the open, I just knew that that was it. He is one of the supreme backs in the league, and no one's going to catch him if he gets that kind of room to run. Danny White with all kinds of time to throw here. The Vikings should have knocked this one down, but Doug Cosby somehow comes up with it. The receiver always has the advantage on a play like this because he gets a chance to see the ball from the time the quarterback lets it go. The defensive backs are getting in coverage, and they really have to react to it.
Ron Springs then in for the touchdown. All of a sudden, Dallas is on top, 27-24, 6.5 minutes left. But to the Vikings' credit, they moved down the field a long drive. This was a 3rd and 18.
Key to this entire game was right there. They came up with the plays when they needed them. It was a situation where we just never gave up. Even when they scored that last touchdown, everybody was still ready to get back in the game.
That was Terry LeCount. Here's Ted Brown getting one right in the back.
Excellent catch by Teddy Brown. Like you say, we've watched the highlights here, and we've seen Teddy run the ball, catch the ball short, catch the ball in the flat. Teddy's just an all-purpose football player.
Kramer now picking and choosing what he wants to do. That pass to LeCount sets up the winning touchdown pass to Ricky Young.
Once you get them loosened up with those passes down the middle, you can throw those outdoor passes. This is a design play, and you'll remember this against the Chicago Bears last year that won the game. It's a play where Tommy rolls to his left, brings the defense all the way over. Ricky kind of sneaks out to the right all by himself and makes a great catch, falls on the ground, gets up and gets in the end zone.
That turf was slippery out there last night. Ricky Young in for the winning touchdown. The Vikings 31-27, but we've seen Dallas come back so many times in the final 2 minutes. They still had a ways to go to clinch this victory, and Randy Holloway took care of that in 2 consecutive plays.
Well, the way our defense was playing, I was extremely confident at this time. They really just rose to the occasion. Randy Holloway is a big, tall defensive lineman, and he just gets his hands up in the way.
Oh, was he having a good time out there last night?
Everybody was having a good time.
He did it on 3rd down and 4th down. It had to be just a draining night as a football player to go through something like that.
It was a draining night for everybody involved, even the people that weren't playing. I'm sure all the fans felt the same.
Well, it seemed like a playoff game from the opening kickoff all the way
Well, we got them coming up. Now, in just a minute, we'll return to preview next weekend's playoff games right here on the Rashad Rosen NFL Report. After last weekend, the playoff picture is finally clear, and when all the dust settled, 4 teams from the Central Division are in the playoffs. Now, Green Bay lost a tough game in Detroit, but it didn't matter much to Green Bay because they had clinched the playoff berth earlier. But for Detroit, a win put them right in the playoffs. In Tampa Bay, the Chicago Bears had the Bucs against the wall, but somehow, with playoffs in sight, the Bucs came storming back to win the game in overtime on a 33-yard field goal by Bill Capice. Now, let's go to the highlights, and then we'll come back and talk about the playoff picture.
First, we're going to start in Tampa Bay, Ahmad. Doug Williams got the big throwing arm.
Doug Williams had a tough time the first half, and I really thought that Chicago was going to blow him out, but they came back strong in the second half, just like they've done the last 5 weeks.
There's Capice's game-winning field goal. The Bears, the only Central Division team not to make it.
That's unbelievable. And who said it was a weak division in the Central Division?
Meanwhile, the Lions used the big play to beat Green Bay 27-24, and then they had to watch the Rams upset the 49ers before they clinched it. Alvin Hall's had a great year.
I remember Alvin Hall. I think he's responsible for my broken back.
Was that the guy?
That's the guy.
You just sent him a Christmas card?
I forgot so. He's playing very well, though.
Here's Gary Danielson's touchdown pass to Leonard Thompson.
Leonard Thompson is also you know, Detroit has a lot of big play people on their football team. So I'm sure that if they can ever get within scoring range, they always come up with touchdowns.
I think Detroit was a perfect example of a team that had it all going for them before the strike, and afterwards they had a lot of problems, a lot of dissension. They just never really did get it back together.
The short season has helped a lot of teams make the playoffs, and a lot of teams that wouldn't otherwise be involved in the playoffs have come around, and all of a sudden they're involved in the championship race.
Well, it's going to be a very busy weekend. It all starts on Saturday afternoon. Let's look at the pairings. First of all, in the National Football Conference on Saturday, the Detroit Lions will be playing at Washington. That's the 8th seed against the number 1 seed.
This will be a tough game. Washington is so hot, and they're the type of team that they don't have to play for touchdowns because in Mark Mosley, if they can get in field goal range, they got 3 points.
St. Louis, they've been a good road team all year. They have to play the Packers in Green Bay.
I think the Packers have been coming on awful strong, and if the Packers are ever going to make a move for that Super Bowl, now's the year.
Meanwhile, on Sunday, of course, the Atlanta Falcons will be right here at the Metrodome. That's a 3 o'clock game against the Minnesota Vikings. Tampa Bay, remember what happened a year ago in the playoffs? Dallas beat them, what, 38-0? That's
true. The first game, Atlanta at Minnesota, we've always had a good record playing against Atlanta here in Minnesota, and the Tampa Bay-Dallas game could be a good one. They played earlier this year, and Tampa Bay, by statistics, just ran all over Dallas, but Dallas seemed to outscore them. I think Dallas fears Tampa Bay a little bit, but they get them at home, so I think Dallas is going to have the edge.
I think the Buccaneers' defense is going to have to play way over their heads to win that one.
They really are, because you've really got to play solid football to beat Dallas, as we saw last night.
Meanwhile, in the AFC on Saturday, first of all, this should be, it looks like a rout. The Raiders at home, they have been invincible. Cleveland is playing at them.
The only thing, Mark, is you know, during this playoff season, it's such a new year. Players realize that one loss and you're out, so they seem to come up and rise for all the big games. But with Marcus Allen and the Los Angeles Raiders, I'd have to go with the Raiders.
New England will be playing at Miami. Miami's my team. I think they're going to go all the way this year and go to the Super Bowl and win it.
I think Miami's a little upset about the trick that New England played on them a couple weeks ago with the snowplow, so they'll be looking to pay them back this week.
No such problem down in Florida this weekend. On Sunday, two great games. The New York Jets at Cincinnati and San Diego at Pittsburgh. Cincinnati
coming off a big win, New York Jets coming off a big loss. The Jets were a hot team before last weekend, as we saw, but last week they didn't look very good at Kansas City. They'll have their hands full at Cincinnati.
A full schedule of games this weekend in both the NFC and the AFC. And in just a minute, we'll be back to answer your phone-in questions right here on the Rashad Rosen NFL Report.
There's no doubt.
Okay, Mark, it's that time to answer the phone again. Are you ready?
I'm always ready. You know that.
All right, let's get to it. What's the first call?
Let's go to it and we'll find out. You're on the air. What's your question for us, please?
My question is about the 82 draft with Darren Nelson, Allen, and Riggs, and why Minnesota thought Darren Nelson was more suited to their offense.
I think the reason they fought, because Darren Nelson is an all-purpose football player. He runs the ball, he catches the ball well out of the backfield, and those are the kind of things that we expect from our back. The other backs that you talked about were I-backs that ran the ball the majority of the time. As you know, we do not have a running offense. Our offense is built around throwing the ball, and Darren fits into that very well.
You look at a guy like Marcus Allen. Of course, I know a lot of other teams other than the Vikings said they would have selected Nelson ahead of Allen, even if they would have had that choice. So it's always hindsight right now, but Marcus Allen, without a doubt, is the top rookie in the league. I mean, he could have been the most valuable player in the league this year.
He is playing exceptionally well, but still, Marcus Allen may not have fit into our offense because our offense is set. You have to draft the type of people that you think can fit into your offense.
I'd find a place for Marcus Allen in my offense somewhere. Let's go to the next call. You're on the air. What's your question, please?
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, I just wanted to ask Ahmad what he thinks, you know, what's been wrong with Atlanta the last couple of weeks, and if he thinks that, you know, what's been the lack in their offense? Has it been the lack of Andrews running, or it's been Bartkowski? And if he thinks that Atlanta will really be up against the Vikings?
Well, I'd have to address that, the last part of that question first. Every team that's involved in the playoffs will be up for the playoff game, regardless of how they've played. I've said many times before that it's two separate seasons. No matter how you get in the playoffs, it's all behind you. Once you start in the playoff, everything is in front of you. You've got to get ready to play a game. As far as Atlanta's problems, I haven't watched the Falcons very much. They're not one of my favorite football teams.
You call them, what, the chippiest team in football? One of your favorite teams. You can't stand them.
I did happen to say that, and I happened to say that in the Sports Illustrated article, so I stand on that fact. And I look forward to the game this weekend against them, and I'm sure that we're going to have a very successful football game against the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay, let's go to our next call. You were on the air. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, I'd like to know whether Bud Grant called for the fake punt, or did Greg Coleman decide to go on his own?
From what we understand, is that there was a fake punt on, and it was called off, but Greg didn't hear it being called off, so that's why he ended up running. Isn't that what happened, Mark?
I talked to Greg after the game, and he said he talked with Bud right before he went out on the field, and Bud told him, if it's there, take it. The play has been in there all year, and Greg talked with Jeff Seaman, who calls the signals. They had it all worked out that Greg was going to take the call and take the snap and run around right in, but Jeff Seaman had spotted something in the Dallas defense that he did not like. He called the play off. Coleman didn't hear it. All of a sudden, Greg says, whoops, he's got Billy Joe Dupree around his legs, but managed to sneak away. It was an amazing athletic move, as we saw.
Greg is a great athlete, and I don't think we really worry about Greg if he has the room to run. He's not a very big fella, but if he has room to run and move around a little bit, he'll get that first down.
It's nice to see those gadget plays once in a while by the Vikes.
I like to see them.
Sure. Let's go to our next call. You're on the air. Do you have a question for us?
I was wondering if Scott Studwell is going to be healthy enough to play on Sunday.
Well,
did you find out what the injury report was, Mark?
Well, Scott is getting better all the time. I know Bud didn't want to take a chance, of course, of using Scott at all last night, and that's one of the main reasons why Sammy White played, I think, in just one play. But I believe Scott Studwell has a very good chance of playing on Sunday. It's difficult to keep a guy like Scott out with the way he loves to play the game. His knee is coming along a lot better, and I'd be surprised if Scott isn't ready
Well,
on Sunday.
Scott is such a reckless type of a player. I mean, he plays all out every single play. I think it was a very good move to hold him out of the game last week, so he'll be ready to play this week. He'll get over a few bumps and bruises, and he's got a few of them, more than just that knee injury that they talk about, so he'll be at full strength next week.
Let's go to our last call here. You're on the air. Do you have a question for us?
Yeah, who discovered Crazy George and where did he come from?
Crazy George is one of Mark's long-lost relatives. No, I'm just kidding. I don't really know where Crazy George came from.
Listen, I interviewed that guy live on the air yesterday at 6. That was the most bizarre experience I've ever had in television. He's been down in Houston for 3 years, and he actually drums up literally the fans' interest for the Houston Oilers, and they've needed it this year. But I remember he said his first time he was in the Twin Cities was 9 years ago. He came in here as the mascot for the Oakland Seals hockey team. They, of course, have since folded. But Crazy George was hired by the Vikings to come up here and perform his little dance in the stands. And the way I understand it, the Vikings are trying to get him back here again next Sunday.
Does Crazy George have an off season? I mean, is he like the chicken where he does things all year round?
He's really been exclusively working for Houston, so he really hasn't done that. The man is truly crazy. I mean, I have to tell you, he is really strange. He does a good job of it.
He did an excellent job. I thought he had the fans fired up more than they've been lately. That along with some fine football play out on the field.
That's, like I said at the beginning, it wasn't just a sideshow. It was everything that happened on the field that made it a worthwhile night. Ahmad, as you mentioned, your favorite team is coming to town, the Atlanta Falcons. We'll be back to preview that, and we'll have a special guest in just a minute right here in the Rashad Rosen NFL Report.
Food. In 1978, the Vikings started the Vikings Children's Fund, and it's something that the Vikings as an organization feel very strongly about. It's gotten bigger and better every year, and this year we got together with a group, Frito-Lay, to make it one of our best years of all. And tonight we've got a guest with us, John Connolly, who's Division Sales Manager of Frito-Lay, just to tell us a little bit about that charity.
Okay, Ahmad. As you mentioned, the Minnesota Vikings Children's Fund started in 1978, and since then it's contributed over $300,000 toward finding childhood diseases that are afflicting over 12 million children each year.
Well, now, we were in some kind of a competition where every point that we scored, Frito-Lay put up some money.
Absolutely. The program calls for $100 per point for every point that the Vikings score during the regular and postseason. And that totals to quite a bit of money over the year.
One of the things that I thought was really great about this situation was during the strike, you put up $1,000 a week even though we weren't playing football.
That's correct. Even though you didn't make any money, we wanted to make sure that the children weren't left out. So we donated $1,000 for every game that was missed during the strike.
Well, John, of course, the regular season's over. Do you have the check ready to present to the Vikings Children's Fund?
I sure do. On behalf of the folks that sell Lay's and Ruffles potato chips, I'd like to present this check for $25,700 made out to the order of the Minnesota Vikings Children's Fund.
On behalf of the Vikings, this is fantastic. I'm sure everybody appreciates this.
It is a great community effort by all people involved, John.
Well, a lot of people joined into it, and again, I want to thank the Minnesota Vikings, Lay's and Ruffles potato chips, and WCCO for helping us make this a success.
Well, let's hope it continues again next year.
I'm all for it, and the postseason. We've still got 5 games to go till the Super Bowl.
That's what we're shooting for.
30 points a game, that should be a lot of money.
I've got the pockets. Let's get the points.
All right, thank you.
Well, of course, we will be back as long as the Vikings are in the playoffs, so join us again next Sunday night at 10:30 for the Rashad Rosen NFL Report. Thanks for watching and have a very good week.
Good night.